Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou I tēnei wā. Today we're going to be looking at transitioning from student teachers into the profession. So we're going to be looking at aspects around provisionally registered teachers and advice and guidance programs. Who can apply to be registered? Of course, you know early childhood teachers or the equivalent approved by New Zealand Teachers Council can apply to become registered teachers. So there are three categories. This is the main point that you need to know, really. There are three categories, and most of you already know this, but we've got the PRTs, the provisionally registered teachers. We've got the STCs, subject to confirmation, and full registration. So in order to become fully registered, teachers must undertake advice and guidance or mentoring programs. The criteria: application fee, $220.80. Last year it was $120, so it's gone up considerably. Teachers Council responsible, they're the registering agency, and they register if you're of good character and fit to be a teacher, and that you're trained to teach. So that's the responsibility of the Teachers Council. So fit to be a teacher, you go through a police vet. You display respect for persons, for cultural and social values of Aotearoa New Zealand. You uphold the public and professional reputation of teachers, promote the safety of your learners, reliable and trustworthy, and mentally and physically fit to be able to do the job. Who is a fully registered teacher and who is a provisionally registered teacher? So the fully registered teacher, this category is for the experienced teachers who hold full registration. A teacher is provisionally registered when they have graduated from an approved program, such as yourselves, and apply for a practicing certificate. You then become a provisionally registered teacher for 2 years. Teachers who have not taught in New Zealand continuously for 2 years, they go through a different process, and so they have to provide evidence, and they are registered subject to confirmation. They have to complete 2 years of supervised teaching, or they were previously registered as subject to confirmation, or they hold a former grading or List B classification, but they have a certificate to teach. So a practicing certificate, which is what you will get upon applying for provisional registration. You get this practicing certificate. It's a formal notification which indicates that registration is current and that you have satisfied all the requirements of the Education Act 1989. I'm just glossing over these because we're going to have a visit from the Teachers Council later on in the year, and you'll have an opportunity to go and do your own research around all of this and ask questions of the person that's coming from the Teachers Council. But that's going to be a big forum. So what does a current practicing certificate indicate? Well, it indicates in the case of a teacher holding the full registration that you meet the criteria for registration. You've completed an approved and accredited program through an accredited organisation. You've undertaken satisfactory professional development, and you've had a satisfactory police vet. In the case of a teacher registered subject to confirmation, that you meet the criteria for registration, have had a satisfactory police vet, and adequate and suitable teaching experience. And in the case of a teacher holding provisional registration, which is what you are all going to be doing next year, that you meet the criteria for registration and likely to be a satisfactory teacher. So a teacher registered in this category of provisional registration may have had teaching experience but may not yet have met the requirements for full registration. When does it expire? In the case of holding a full registration practicing certificate, 5 years, or in the case of holding a subject to confirmation, 3 years, and your provisional registration will be valid for 5 years, although after 2 years, as you already know, you are able to apply for full registration to move from the category of a PRT into an FRT. So why does New Zealand have a teacher registration? The main reason why the teacher registration process is to lift the standard so that we have a minimum quality standard across the general education system. So it's really about professionalising teachers. Maintenance of a register assists the boards of trustees and other employing bodies in making their appointments and reassures parents and the public that a national minimum standard for the teaching profession is available. Teacher registration was introduced in 1990 and made compulsory in 1996 in primaries and in secondary schools and in early childhood centres in various stages from 2005 and from kura kaupapa Māori from 2006. So some information that you will need to know as early childhood teachers. Teacher registration provides a public professional image. It's registration for early childhood teachers is the same for teachers in the primary and secondary, and as you are aware, you are eligible to go into the junior school of the primary sector with an early childhood teacher ed degree. So at present, it's required by the Education Act 1989 that all teachers permanently employed in a free kindergarten or in a state or private school must be registered. All other teachers must be registered or hold a limited authority to teach. So, and as you know, they've changed the criteria. They've moved the benchmark down for 80% of teachers in all early childhood programs to be registered by 2012. What are the requirements to become fully registered? To be employed as a teacher in a school or a kindergarten or a centre, you must hold a current practising certificate. And you can be recommended for full registration by the professional leader or the head teacher or the supervising teacher in the centre of which you are employed. Now, these programs, advice or the mentoring programs. So if there's not a fully registered teacher in your learning centre, what do you do? This can happen in many early childhood centres. This is the case. You'll need to find a fully registered teacher outside of that centre. You could consider peer support and an appraisal system with 2 or 3 colleagues together under the supervision of a fully registered teacher. So it's about teaming up with other centres, using as a supervisor a fully registered teacher in a nearby learning centre serving a different age group, for example a primary school or a secondary school or advisory service. You can use that person to help with your registration, but in this case it's really important that the terms are understood with your supervising teacher. If you're having problems with all of that, contact the Teachers Council. Induction, that's the mentoring program. There's an assumption made when a teacher graduates from an approved program that they have some theoretical knowledge to be a satisfactory teacher. They've got some knowledge that's around what it means out in the field, practical knowledge, a combination of the two. And as you already know, provisionally registered for 2 years, all learning centres should have policy and procedures for the advice and guidance programs. So for teachers moving into the full registration, you need an identified supervising teacher, a mentoring program, opportunity to observe, opportunities for other colleagues to observe you, participate in professional development, and of course, most importantly of all, you need a written record of all your advice and guidance program and all the professional development that you have participated in and how it has helped to shape you into a fully registered teacher. So here's just an exemplar of somebody who has written in their program documentation that was kept for the purposes of moving to full registration. Can have a quick overview, sorts of things that she wrote down, all the dates, what she valued. So how can you make the most of of your professional development time by observing others, having others observe you, working with individual students or small groups, large groups, monitoring and assessment learning, pedagogical leadership, just discussions with whānau, resource people, other colleagues, other professionals, finding out about the policies of the centre. And the policies of the Teachers' Council are all the time changing, so you need to keep up to the minute with what's happening at the wider political level as well. And of course, participating in professional development. So that's that one. I'm just going to overview very briefly this document because it was research that was carried out by the Teachers' Council back in 2007, and it showed some of the barriers, some of the problems, some of the issues that provisionally registered teachers face. They generally are uncertain about their entitlements when they go out into the field, so it's really important that you know all about your entitlements. You know, there are several teaching positions in their first 2 years. Some teachers, particularly in the early childhood sector, were expected to take on management and other responsibilities because you're the one with the ticket now. Orientation to their workplaces. Differences between the sectors and the levels of commitment shown to the induction of provisionally registered teachers. So, depending on where you are, there might be zilch. You might have to really push for that, or in some places the programs are really well run. But 20% of early childhood teachers saw registration as compliance rather than a support process, which is very interesting. So all learning centres are funded. Most teachers were assigned to a person. Provisionally registered teachers in all sectors rated mentor provision of emotional support and encouragement as the most important mentoring activity. Now, around half of provisionally registered teachers believed that it was very important to have an advice and guidance program. Only half, that's not a lot. Provisionally registered teachers highly valued being observed, typically did not have frequent opportunities to observe their mentor, and teaching continues to be a private act with infrequent opportunities for teachers to watch and learn from their colleagues. So that's very interesting too, because the more you can get to do that, of course, the more professional development you're exposed to. So more than half of early childhood teachers indicated that they observed other teachers. Around 40% of teachers in all sectors were not given feedback. Early childhood teachers were much more likely to be provided with assessment of their efforts to reflect and value Te Ao Māori. This is very interesting. That's largely due to our bicultural curriculum document. So while the majority reported that they were still enjoying teaching, 16% of early childhood teachers were not happy. 11% did not expect to be teaching in 5 years' time. Overall, the study demonstrated that the current system of support and assessment for provisionally registered teachers depended largely on the capabilities and learning conditions of the workplace. It's critical that full admission to the teaching profession is based on sound assessment practices and shared expectations. So the results emphasised the importance of mentor selection, that's critical, and the study suggested that the need for collaboration between individuals and agencies is also important. So there is another document that is actually on the net. I'm not going to go through it. It's just so that you're aware. There's a whole lot of support resources on the net on the Teachers' Council site. So this is getting a bit obsolete now, but it's got a whole section in there for early childhood centres and for schools. It's going through it really fast. I'm not going to go it now. I'll show that in the lecture time. Nō reira tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou, I tēnei wā, ka mutu.